Good evening. My name is Adrienne Anderson. I'm a longtime East Denver resident in Congress Park, District 10. For over 2 decades, I've conducted environmental investigations, largely around military toxic sites, not only in the Denver metropolitan area and Colorado, but around the western United States, predominantly in public interest capacity and representing concerns of community people surrounding these sites, as well as workers affected on these types of sites. Half of that time, I was on the faculty of the University of Colorado at Boulder Environmental Studies program, teaching students courses on how to do advanced environmental investigations into sites just like this. On this particular area, I've been involved in investigating the documentary record on this site since going back to approximately 1986, and I'm sure I've reviewed several thousand documents related to this particular site. Based upon that, I'm here to strongly oppose the rezoning of this site for several reasons I'd like to quickly detail. One is the contamination. Why would IRG buy a 90-plus piece of land for $10? That's 12 cents an acre. The big elephant in the room here is, yes, indeed, it is a radioactive waste dump. Now, those are not conspiracy theories from some lunatic, but documents going back to the 50s very well show that that is the case. I've copied some of these to provide to you today. One of these is a map of a U.S. Air Force real estate map from 1951 that designates pretty much the bulk of the current Lowry Vista site as being a, quote, known radiological waste burial area. This was a document that was prepared by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, is in the administrative record for the Lowry Air Force Base, which anyone can access online through the U.S. Air Force administrative record, which you can actually access online. And this document is available. It's document number something. On this, you can see that. Also at the back of this, I have a document of the Versar Corporation, which was a U.S. Air Force contractor in the mid-90s, tasked with doing the environmental investigation at this very site that's at issue today. And it talks about the fact that in all 50 groundwater samples at this landfill, which was measured, high levels of gross alpha and gross beta radiation existed underneath the site, at levels going up to 10 to 20 times what's considered acceptable under federal guidelines. This is gross alpha radiation and gross beta radiation. Now, the public relations campaign strategy on this site is to try to say that this is all naturally occurring radiation, yet natural uranium is an alpha emitter. It is not a beta radiation emitter, and you don't get high levels of gross beta radiation from naturally occurring radiation. I'm also distressed to report that the documents do also indicate that not only is there several different isotopes of uranium there, but there's also cobalt-60 and all kinds of other things, including some exotic radioactive chemicals in there, and most disturbing, the presence of detectable levels of plutonium, several different isotopes of plutonium. And that's evident in the Versar studies that were conducted in the mid-1990s as well. DOE-certified laboratory analyses that have never been questioned to my knowledge. Now, at the point that the Air Force determined that this site was highly radioactive, they began to get very creative because they did know that they wanted to dump this property. And they wanted to dump this property because they were going to refuse to clean it up because of the presence of the radioactive waste in there. And so that's why all of these politics and shenanigans have gone on, unfortunately. Now, but the fact remains, it is a radioactive disposal site. It's never been remediated to remove or otherwise remediate that site other than to simply kick dirt over the top. That would not be the preferable way to treat a site of this nature. And by going in and digging into a site of this type of characteristic, you risk workers being exposed to radioactive substances, not to mention that it's also loaded with asbestos, lead, and numerous other toxic and radioactive chemicals. But let's talk about the credibility of IRG, the major proponent for this, and the two IRGs. One thing is that Stuart Lichter, who testified before, who's the developer at this site in California, where they built a similar type of proposed facility that they did in fact build outside of Los Angeles. They built it on top of a former nuclear reactor site. Workers began to get ill. Upwards of 100 workers began to report illnesses from suspected radiation exposure. The response of IRG and Stuart Lichter was to sue the workers who attempted to come forward with their illnesses, and the civic group who attempted to make public their plight. They filed suit against those people, but Stuart Lichter would not even bother to be deposed in the suit that he himself brought, trying to silence those workers. And the judge threw out his very case against those citizens. Now, is that the kind of integrity and credibility we want with a developer in the city and county of Denver? I think not.
Your time is up.
Thank you.